Hello everyone, welcome back into the studio. My name is Eirik, and today we're going to cover how to make a simple silicone and plaster mold so that you can cast your clay figures. Time for the plaster model mold. I've made another video on mixing plaster, so we're not going to cover that here. It'll be linked in the video description and on the video page on eirikarnesen.com/tutorials. This will of course be very important to know before beginning to work with plaster, since mixing plaster is the first step in doing a good job here. A badly mixed plaster mix is going to ruin your work, and a good one will make your life much easier and give you a successful mold a little bit easier. What is a plaster model mold and why do we need one? A plaster model mold is a model mold made from plaster. The model mold is the term we use for the hard shell that contains the silicone skin, which captures all the detail of our sculpture. The silicone skin, while capturing all the detail, however, is thin and flexible, so it can't stand upright on its own, so it's sort of flopping about. However, we want it to be thin and flexible so we can flex it easily off our sculpture, usually a casting in a hard material, so we need the silicone skin to be flexible to come off of that hard material without any trouble. That's why we use it. Because it is thin and flexible, it can't hold its own shape, however, very well, and especially not once weight of a casting material, say liquid plaster, for example, is added inside of it. It'll sort of function like a thick balloon at that point and just sort of flop around, so that's not going to work at all. It can't hold the shape of the sculpture that is currently inside of it when that sculpture is not inside of it, essentially, is what I'm trying to say here. And this is what the model mold does. It helps hold the silicone in place, and without one you'd be hard pressed to make a successful mold this way. So you've learned to mix plaster from the other video. Let's talk now about what we're doing here in this video. We're going in with a batch of plaster and brushing it all over the silicone skin on one half, except for the top of the silicone walls right here. The top of the silicone walls we want to keep clean, and I'll cover why later. Normally we'd make a splash coat, a thin even coat of plaster, and we'd let it set up over the silicone, and then we go over that with burlap. However, I'm sometimes impatient, and since this is a small mold, I'm going directly into it with the burlap. No splash coat. I do cover the silicone with plaster first, just so that it has some plaster on it, but then we're going to go directly into it with the burlap. So since we worked with the burlap pretty much right away, we need to talk about it. To keep the model mold from needing to be super heavy with a ton of plaster to be strong, we reinforce the plaster instead with a fabric called burlap or jute. And there are other options as well, but burlap is a very cheap and nice and easily available one. Should be available from any fabric store, I'd say. It's been cut down to a variety of sizes before beginning, and it's dipped into the plaster, soaked, and then applied to the mold. This allows us to use way less plaster and get a strong mold which keeps the weight down. For most plaster molds, I would do 2 layers of burlap. 2 layers is going to be plenty strong for anything up to life size, maybe even above, I'd say. And it's actually important to keep the weight down as well, as more weight means more weight must be supported by the model mold shell when it's being handled and moved around. Every piece of burlap is overlapped somewhere with a previous piece of burlap that was applied, and this keeps the entire model mold piece as one unified burlap layer in the end. Anywhere you don't do this, there's going to be sort of an open weak spot where there's only plaster, where you could have cracks and breaks form. I keep careful track as I'm working of where I've been, of where I've applied burlap rather, and try to work from one side to the other, or from bottom up or top down, whatever makes sense to you. It doesn't really matter as long as you stay organized. Keep track of those layers too, by the way. That's another very important thing. A lot of people will sort of do 2 layers for half their mold for whatever reason, and then sort of lose track of where they've been because they're too distracted talking to their friend or something. Avoid that. Avoid talking to your friends while making molds. We've built silicone walls already. Now we have to build what's known as plaster walls, because our plaster model mold is essentially finished, except the walls. The plaster walls go around the edge of the model mold, around all the edges of the model mold, and provide strength and stiffness to the mold. The edges are the places where it's most likely that we'll have damage occur, so making them the strongest makes sense, and I would call this a necessary step for a good mold. Plaster goes through stages as it cures, and we needed to hit the stage we call the cream cheese stage before we can begin this process of building plaster walls in earnest. When the plaster becomes like cream cheese, it's easily sculpted with, and this is when it's the ideal time to make the plaster walls. The plaster walls should be as tall as the silicone walls, and in order to save weight, we're going to make them right about as wide as the silicone wall as well, before we'll turn 90 degrees and head straight back down to the surface of our model mold, very much in the same way that we did when we made the silicone wall. The technique here is simple. Use your flat metal spatula to register the top of the plaster wall to the top of the silicone wall by running them flush to each other. And this is why it's so important to keep the top of the silicone wall clean as we go along here. Because now we can register, using our flat tool, the top of the plaster wall to the top of the silicone wall very easily. Once the plaster is flush with the silicone wall, we'll turn the tool 90 degrees and push down towards the model mold itself to create the second edge of the wall. And of course we do that far enough out from the silicone wall on the plaster wall so that the plaster wall is right about as wide or as thick as the silicone wall. At some point the plaster goes from cream cheese to something closer to cottage cheese, still soft but much more lumpy and sort of crumbly. And at this point it's time to give up the plaster mixture and mix a new bowl of plaster. During this stage, the plaster won't like to bond to itself, and therefore you're going to have a very hard time creating a strong wall that's well bonded to itself and to the model mold, so it can sort of crack off a little bit easier, and that's no good. At the end here, I like to take what little plaster remains in the bowl and use it to create a nice surface to my mold. I use late stage cream cheese plaster, if you will, for this, as the bond and strength doesn't matter too much at that point. The surface isn't smooth, but not too rough or too sharp either. I don't want to make it smooth because, well, I don't think it's necessary and it's a lot of work and time and effort. And what I actually much rather prefer is a surface that's a little rough to help me get a good grip on the mold during handling, but not so much texture that I'm going to cut myself. Once the walls are done, we can usually let the plaster sit for a few moments before going at it with a rasp, sort of shaping it, the final shaping. And by doing this a little bit sooner rather than later, we make sure that we rasp plaster that is not fully set, which is easier to do. Instead of the plaster feeling hard, it'll feel like rasping a wet cracker or something like that. After waiting a full day, a couple of days, or minimum overnight, we're going to be opening the mold finally. The plaster is not going to be properly set until multiple weeks after being created, so it's not really a good idea to open the mold right away, let's say the same day or an hour after making it. The plaster will at that point be a little bit too soft, sort of like a wet cracker, and the chances of it breaking is much greater. Waiting just a day is going to help a lot. The model mold comes off super easy here, which happens because we carefully designed where the mold is separated into two, and also because we took great care of getting rid of any potential undercuts with silicone. Before demolding the silicone, I like to rasp and clean the model mold shells a little bit as well. Sometimes they have sharp edges, which you can only get at once the mold has been opened. A light rasping along the edges here solves any issues, and once done, the model mold shells are ready to receive the silicone skin. The silicone skin is going to be cut open and go from a silicone sock to 2 pieces of silicone. The knife we'll be using here first is called a silicone knife, though it does have some other names like jelly knife in other countries. And it's a blade with a bend in it, as you can see here. The bend ends up inside the silicone wall and creates a positive and a negative trench on either side of the mold, which leads to the 2 halves fitting neatly together once the mold is closed. You can see a mark on the knife drawn with a black Sharpie, and that's just there to help me know how deep to cut. Because if you cut too deeply, then the registration bend in the blade ends up too deep, sometimes even inside the clay, and thus it's not very useful for registering the 2 halves of the silicone back together. We really need that registration groove to be more or less in the middle of the silicone wall, ideally. If it's too far down, it can also be a little bit annoying because it creates an edge, an inside edge to the silicone mold, which can be difficult to discern in the future where it is when we make a casting. Don't try to pull and rip the silicone if it's almost cut all the way through. Silicone is quite strong, but where a partial cut has happened, a cut that hasn't gone all the way through down to the clay, there's a lot of stress concentrated right at the leading edge of that cut, and this leads to, if you pull it too much, the silicone ripping. That's it. The mold is finished and ready for us to cast in, which is something that we will cover in an upcoming video, probably a few months down the line. Mold making is of course a vital part of the process, as it's here we're creating a memory of our positive clay sculpture, a negative memory, which we can then use to reproduce a positive casting in a more durable material than the clay that we sculpted the figure in. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. I hope you learned a thing or two that you can take with you into your own practice. Until next time, stay creative.